What if the earring you choose reveals more about you than you think? Not only about your style, not only about what appears elegant, bold, or beautiful to you, but about something deeper, something quieter. The part of you that responds before logic takes over. The part that senses emotion, energy, and meaning almost instantly, even when you cannot explain the reason. That is what makes this kind of choice so interesting, because when you observe 5 different earrings, you are not just noticing shapes, colors, and details. You are also reacting to symbols, to moods, to emotional signals that connect with something already present within you. And in moments like this, your first instinct is often more truthful than your most carefully considered answer. That is why I want you to do something simple before we continue. Take a breath. Picture the earrings again in your mind. Do not overthink it. Do not try to pick the one that looks the most expensive, the most fashionable, or the most impressive. Just notice which one attracted you first. Which one made you stop for a moment longer? Which one felt unexpectedly personal? Even if you could not explain why, that first reaction is important. We often like to think our decisions are fully logical, but in reality, they are not. Very often, what draws us in first reflects something emotional, something we desire, something we protect, something we keep hidden, or something we are only starting to understand about ourselves. And that is exactly why symbolic tests can feel so accurate. They do not work because the object itself holds any magic. They work because your reaction to it comes from a place that is usually unfiltered. A place beneath performance, beneath habit, beneath the version of yourself that you present to others. Sometimes a person chooses softness because they are exhausted from being strong. Sometimes they choose mystery because they tend to trust slowly. Sometimes they choose brilliance because a part of them is ready to be seen. And sometimes they choose something calm, bold, dark, or luminous because it reflects a hidden truth they have not fully identified yet. So this is not really a test about jewelry. It is a test of recognition, of what your mind is drawn to when no one is guiding you on who to be. As we go through each of the 5 earrings, you may begin to notice that your choice reflects more than just preference. It may reveal how you love, how you protect yourself, how you carry your emotions, and the kind of energy you naturally bring into the world. In some cases, it may even show you a side of yourself that has always been there, but has never been expressed out loud, so keep your choice in mind. We are about to begin with the first earring, and as you listen, do not only ask whether it sounds interesting. Ask whether it feels like you. If the first earring was the one that attracted you, there is a strong possibility that your inner world is deeper than most people realize. This choice is often made by someone who feels before they explain. Someone who senses things that are not directly spoken. You may be the kind of person who quickly picks up on tone, silence, body language, and emotional shifts. Even when you try to ignore it, a part of you is always reading the room, always noticing what has shifted, always sensing what others are trying to hide. And that can be both a gift and a burden, because people who are naturally intuitive often spend a great deal of time carrying things that were never theirs to carry. You may find yourself absorbing emotions, replaying conversations, or feeling responsible for others simply because you understand them so well. While others move on quickly, you tend to stay with what you felt. You reflect on it. You turn it over in your mind. You try to understand what was beneath it. That kind of emotional depth is uncommon. The first earring, with its softer and more symbolic energy, often reflects a person who is gentle but not weak, quiet but far from passive. There is a clear difference. You are likely not someone who needs to control a room to feel powerful. Your strength is more subtle. It exists in your awareness, in your sensitivity, in your ability to notice what matters. Even when it is hidden in the smallest details, people may not always understand you immediately. Some may see you as reserved. Some may describe you as mysterious. Some may assume that because you do not reveal everything at once, there is less happening within you. But in most cases, the opposite is true. You simply do not trust every space with your full self. You open gradually. You observe first, you feel safe first, and once someone truly earns your trust, you become deeply loyal. That is one of the most meaningful parts of your nature. You do not form shallow connections. You are not interested in empty attention or surface-level closeness. You want something real. You value sincerity, emotional honesty, and a sense that what is being shared is genuine, not simply performed for appearance. And because of that, you may have felt disappointed more than once by people who only operate on the surface. Still, there is something important your choice may be reminding you of. Sensitivity is a strength, but it requires protection. Understanding others is meaningful, but it should not come at the cost of neglecting yourself. Just because you can hold space for someone does not mean you must carry their weight. Just because you can sense pain does not mean it is your responsibility to fix it every time. If this was your earring, your hidden self may be deeply intuitive, emotionally aware, and quietly strong. Someone who observes more than they express. Someone who experiences life in subtle ways. Someone whose softness is not weakness, but depth. As we move from this quieter energy into the next choice, the tone begins to shift, because not every personality contains its fire so gently. If the second earring was the one that drew your attention first, then your energy is likely very different. Where the first choice reflected quiet depth, this one reflects presence. It represents intensity, desire, and a heart that does not experience things halfway. You may be the kind of person who lives life vividly. When something matters to you, it truly matters. When you love, you do so with strength. When you want something, your entire energy moves toward it. And even when you try to remain calm, there is often something powerful beneath the surface. That is the strength of this choice. The second earring usually attracts people who are passionate, emotionally engaged, and guided by something deeper than simple preference. It is not only about boldness on the surface, it reflects a strong need to feel connected to life in a meaningful way. You are likely not someone who enjoys emotional emptiness, weak connections, or situations that feel lifeless. You seek substance. You value truth. You want to feel that something is truly happening, that it carries meaning. And because of that, your presence can be memorable. People may notice your confidence, your intensity, or the way you naturally stand out without effort. But what they do not always recognize is that strong energy often comes with equally strong emotions. The same inner fire that gives you ambition and attraction can also make you feel things more deeply than others expect. You may feel frustrated quickly when something seems inauthentic. You may struggle with waiting, with uncertainty, or with people who move through life without honesty or clear intention. You can sense when something is real and when it is not. That can make relationships more complex at times, because people with this kind of emotional intensity often seek depth but attract projection. Others may admire your strength while misunderstanding your sensitivity. They may assume that because you appear confident, you do not need reassurance. Because you seem strong, you are not affected. But that is rarely the case. Very often, the strongest personalities are simply those who learn to turn pain into action instead of collapse. That may be part of your story as well. If this earring was your choice, there is a strong possibility that some of your strength was built during difficult times. Maybe you learned to keep going when life gave you no alternative. Maybe you realized that waiting to be chosen was never your path, so you began choosing yourself. Perhaps your intensity is not a flaw, but the form your survival took when you refused to become smaller. And that deserves recognition. Still, this choice carries an important reminder. Fire is powerful, but it needs direction. Passion is meaningful, but it should not overwhelm you. You do not need to apologize for being intense, driven, expressive, or emotionally genuine. But you do need environments where that energy is understood, not discouraged. If this was your earring, your hidden self may be brave, magnetic, protective, and deeply alive. And after fire, another kind of energy begins to emerge. Because sometimes the soul is not asking to burn brighter. Sometimes it is asking to heal. If the third earring was the one that drew you in first, then your inner state may be in a very different place right now. Unlike the previous choice, which reflected heat, movement, and intensity, this one feels calmer, softer, and more grounded. But that does not make it less powerful. In many ways, it can be even stronger, because this choice often belongs to people who are learning how to rebuild themselves quietly. People who are growing without noise, healing in private, and changing in ways that others may not notice yet, but that matter deeply within. There is something restorative in this kind of energy. The third earring usually attracts someone who values peace, balance, and emotional honesty. You may be the kind of person who naturally looks for what feels healthy rather than what feels dramatic. Even if your life has not always been calm, a part of you seeks stability. Not because you are weak, but because you understand how exhausting chaos can be. At a certain point, many people stop chasing excitement and begin choosing what feels true, what feels safe, what feels clear for the heart. That may be exactly where you are right now. If this was your choice, there is a strong chance you have already gone through phases that required you to change. You may have outgrown old habits, past relationships, former fears, or earlier versions of yourself that once felt necessary. And even if you do not speak about it often, there is likely a story behind your gentleness. There is a story behind the way you now value emotional stability, sincerity, and slower forms of growth. That is what makes this choice so meaningful. People with this kind of energy often carry a quiet resilience. They may not always appear strong in a traditional sense, but they continue moving forward. They recover. They adapt. They find ways to start again. And because of that, others often feel unexpectedly safe around them. You may be the person others open up to without planning to. The one who brings calm into a room. The one who listens without turning everything toward themselves. The one whose presence feels less like pressure and more like relief. That is a rare form of strength. But this choice also carries an important warning. Sometimes people who are deeply connected to healing become too patient with what harms them. They wait too long. They excuse too much. They continue investing in things that were never meant to grow. And because they believe in growth, they sometimes forget that not everything is meant to be saved. Some things are meant to be released. Some things are meant to end. And often, healing truly begins when you stop carrying what is no longer yours. So if this was your earring, your hidden self may be thoughtful, restorative, emotionally mature, and still evolving. You are likely learning that growth does not always appear dramatic. Sometimes it looks like choosing peace, choosing distance, choosing yourself. Before we move into the next choice, take a moment to notice which of these has felt closest to you so far. And if this chapter is resonating with you, consider subscribing and liking the video. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more content like this, because from here, the energy shifts again. And the next earring does not heal in the open. It protects itself first. If the fourth earring was the one that drew you in, there is a strong chance that your strength exists in the parts of you that most people never fully see. This is a very different type of energy, less open, less obvious, more controlled and more intentional. While the previous choice reflected healing and softness, this one feels sharper, quieter, and more guarded. It often represents someone who has learned to rely on logic before trusting emotions too quickly. Someone who observes carefully, opens up slowly, and rarely gives emotional access without reason. You may be that kind of person. If this was your choice, you likely do not share everything you think with others. You may appear friendly, composed, and even warm in your own way, but there is usually a layer of distance between your public image and your private world. Not because you enjoy being mysterious, but because experience has taught you that not everyone deserves immediate access to what is inside you. So you observe first, you listen first, you understand first. And only then do you decide how much of yourself to reveal. The fourth earring usually attracts people who value intelligence, independence, emotional control, and self-protection. You may be someone who dislikes chaos, manipulation, or individuals who speak confidently but lack real depth. You likely trust consistency more than charm and clarity more than promises. Because of that, your standards may be higher than most people realize. You are not cold. You are cautious. That difference is important, because people with your kind of energy are often misunderstood. Others may assume that because you remain composed, you are detached, because you are private, you are unemotional, and because you do not dramatize everything, they may misread your depth. You may not feel deeply, but in reality, it is often the opposite. Many people who appear the most in control are carrying an emotional world far deeper than others realize. They have simply learned to process it in silence. That may also be true in your case. Perhaps you became strong by learning how to hold yourself together when no one else did it for you. Perhaps you realized early that vulnerability without awareness can come at a cost. So instead of breaking in public, you adapted. You became more self-reliant, more observant, and more selective. And over time, that sense of caution became part of who you are. There is strength in that, but there is also a quiet cost. Because when you become too accustomed to protecting yourself, it can become harder to recognize when it is finally safe to soften. You may find comfort in control, yet still long for someone who understands you without requiring you to explain every hidden part of yourself. You may desire closeness, but only the kind that feels earned, stable, and genuine. If this was your earring, your hidden self may be perceptive, disciplined, private, and far more sensitive than you outwardly show. You do not open up easily, but when you do, it carries meaning. And now, after mystery, control, and quiet protection, we arrive at the final choice. Because for some people, the deepest strength is not in hiding or in healing. It is in finding peace without losing truth. If the fifth earring was the one you selected, then your inner world may be guided by something many people are still searching for: real peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from avoiding difficulties. Not the kind that appears calm on the surface while confusion remains underneath. Instead, it is a deeper kind of peace, the one that develops when you begin valuing honesty, clarity, and emotional balance more than noise, games, or constant intensity. This choice often belongs to someone who has learned that not everything deserves their energy, and not everyone deserves equal access to their heart. There is a quiet strength in that understanding. The fifth earring usually attracts people who carry a gentle presence, yet also possess a strong inner compass. You may be someone who does not need to be loud to be noticed. someone who naturally brings calm into a room without even trying. People may feel comfortable around you, safe around you, and understood in your presence. And yet, what they may not fully realize is that your calmness did not happen by chance. It was likely shaped through experience, reflection, disappointment, and the gradual realization that protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. That kind of understanding changes a person. If this was your choice, you are probably someone who values sincerity on a deep level. You do not enjoy guessing games in relationships. You do not like emotional confusion just for the sake of excitement. You would rather choose something simple and real over something dramatic and unstable. That does not mean you are boring. It means you have depth. It means your heart is not impressed by performance alone. You seek truth. You value consistency. You want to feel that what is being expressed is genuine. And because of that, over time, you may have become more selective, not colder, not harder, just clearer. That is the beauty of this choice. It often reflects a person who has not lost their softness, but has become wiser about where to place it. You may still care deeply. You may still love deeply. You may still desire closeness, connection, and emotional depth. But now a part of you understands that peace is also a form of self-respect. And once someone learns that, they rarely return to accepting chaos as proof of love. Still, there is something your choice may be reminding you of. Just because you are strong in a quiet way does not mean you must always be the one holding everything together. Just because you are the calm one does not mean you should carry everyone else's storms while ignoring your own. You deserve the same honesty, steadiness, and care that you naturally give to others. If this was your earring, your hidden self may be thoughtful, emotionally aware, kind, and quietly resilient. You are someone who does not need to chase attention because your energy already speaks for itself. And maybe that is your real gift, the ability to remain soft without becoming naive, calm without becoming distant, and truthful without becoming harsh. So now tell me honestly, which earring did you choose? And did this description feel accurate? And if you enjoy these deeper symbolic tests, there is also a more complete psychological test waiting in the link in the description. Because sometimes, the smallest choices reveal the most.